Hey everyone. Wow, been a minute for a lot of reasons. There is a lot that has gone on, and I'm really glad to be able to give you all this update. Before I kind of get started, the and I had to turn my phone down there. Um, Before I kind of get started, I did want to first, of course, thank everybody who has contributed so far. Everybody who's been sharing when I do these updates, as well as just folks that have just been helping out in different ways. There are a lot of you who have done things from like physical stuff, sent me things. Of course, the folks that have contributed financially, both on this platform and elsewhere, and just folks trying to keep my spirits up. And I wanted to first thank you before I got into what all this is really about. So, what's this update right before Christmas? Why are you doing this? A lot of reasons. Um, November was a very difficult time, we'll say. At the end of November, the end of October, we had to do a modification to my fistula and get it working without causing my arm to go numb randomly throughout the day from seemingly doing anything. It would go numb while I was sleeping. It would go numb when I was just leaving it sitting to my side. All kinds of things. The wonderful folks at St. Luke's in their vascular clinic, especially over at St. Luke's East, is where I had it done. Were able to go in and revise it, make it just a bit smaller, keep a good blood flow, and we'll get to that here in just a second. But that process, of course, meant I had to keep this chest catheter. It is still in, and for right now, we are still going through that healing and fistula maturation process that gets it to the point where it can be used on a consistent basis. We did make some progress. We are now at the point where we're sticking it one and one and kind of just trying to get two lines into it. The unfortunate thing, and I'll kind of show you all here, the unfortunate thing is you see that bruising there. Um, that bruising is from um, they call it infiltration, but basically it's just uh, when it gets in there, it's not quite ready to really be used properly. That happened. Bruising it back down. Everything's been fine since. We're still doing it one on one. It's just that top needle that has to go in is not really cooperating just yet. We're getting there though. We're getting there. It's done about an hour so far where we know to run both lines, and we're going to get to the point where we can run both of them here soon, I'm sure. But that may be affected by the next part about this conversation. So, one of the things that we worked on throughout this whole process is trying to really push not just the procedure, the transplant itself, but really myself and the people that have been really closely working with me on the transplant part, truly transplant part of this. That's my social worker at Dialysis. The Dialysis clinic itself, the techs and nurses there have really been working with me. My doctor for bariatric surgery, my other specialists that I've gone to see, vascular folks, interventional radiology, all of them. We've all been trying to really push towards getting into this transplant program and process as quickly as possible and getting everything taken care of as quickly as possible. So, uh, in the interest of that, we were able to get me in for my evaluation, of course, on the 15th of November. And that began how do I put this? That began a very interesting time. So, at the evaluation date, I had a meeting with three parts of the team. The first, Dr. Forster, who is one of the transplant surgeons, and actually will be is one of the three doctors that could actually be doing the physical operation of transplanting the kidney into my body. Um, that conversation was really about my medical history and things that he sees based on my files and other procedures that have gone on. And that got us to some illuminating things. The first, of course, was the unfortunate possibility that being type O blood group could delay any transplant if I couldn't bring a match of my own to the table. We'll get to that in a second. The other part of that was looking at things both before and after my bariatric surgery. One of the things that came up during that, of course, was as you guys know, when I started the transplant journey, there was some issue regarding uh, sleep apnea possibly being a thing. There was also issues regarding, you know, blood pressure and things of that nature. And of course, because I'm diabetic, that was always a concern. That actually was pretty much like the last part was pretty much solved. Well, the sleep apnea to a certain degree seemed to have been solved by my bariatric surgery. The wonderful folks over at Dr. Tan's office at Bariatric and Metabolic Specialist. Shout out to them. I just talked to Dr. Tan actually 2 days ago. But the bariatric surgery seems to have had the added benefit of not only getting my blood pressure to the point where honestly dialysis keeps me pretty low after dialysis treatments are over, but also seems to have really changed the nature of my blood sugars. I am a type 1 diabetic. Yes, we didn't find out until 2006 while I was in college, but it basically should have been diagnosed when I was probably like 12, they think. That comes along with its own set of challenges, both for my bariatric surgeon when he was doing the surgery, but also there were a lot of challenges regarding this whole transplant process. My blood sugars would routinely be very high when they pulled labs for dialysis, even with the low sodium, even with everything else, just because it really anything as they got more and more fluid off would cause my blood sugars to kind of stay fairly high. Since the bariatric surgery in June, however, we need to raise my blood sugar a lot. My A1Cs have been regularly below 5, uh, as low as 3.3 at one point. For folks that know what those numbers mean, you know what I'm saying. And my blood sugars have been in the 60s and 70s. It has its own complications being low on that end, and so we're doing things like I do have beverages that technically have sugars in them throughout the day. We did add in more carbohydrates to my diet because we were basically kind of eliminating as many of those as possible just to make sure that both dialysis was fine, my diabetes was well controlled, as well as post bariatric. You don't want to necessarily have too much bread. You need a lot of protein, and I get a lot of protein. We'll talk about that in a second. But with that information, and Dr. Forster was very interested in getting me into getting looked at by the endocrinology unit at St. Luke's for the additional purpose of trying to make sure there were no, not just other issues, but also just to, ensure that going forward the process, there were low things and things are under control. We can kind of make some decisions as to what needs to be done. That process would not, Dr. Forster said, and of course I would learn again later, that process would not affect my selection evaluation portion of things. So after that, we met with the nephrology nurse for the transplant clinic, and that was an interesting conversation. We went over past ailments. We went over past testing that I've had, both related to, of course, starting dialysis, but also just other things over the last 5 or 6 years. Kind of went through the whole process with the congestive heart failure, talked a lot about what was going on with just this whole process around the diabetes effect on my kidneys. That combined with the testing that was done for my congestive heart failure gave them a good picture of what tests would need to be done to be ready for me to go forward. That discussion would be finalized by meeting my transplant coordinator. So my transplant coordinator's name is Logan. Logan is absolutely awesome. Turns out was the transplant coordinator for one of the other patients at my dialysis clinic, Jody. Shout out to Jody if you're watching this. But it was great to meet Logan. Logan is very understanding of my fairly impatient nature when it comes to this part of the process. So Logan, of course, sat down with me and we really worked on what was going to get done as far as what things I needed to have so far from both the doctor's recommendation, the nephrology nurse's recommendation, and just generally speaking for this to go forward from this evaluation and meeting to the selection evaluation that the doctors of the transplant team would be doing. That went way better than possible. Literally the next week, like I want to say it was the Monday. I had been there on the Wednesday, came in that Monday, and I was getting a phone call from my scheduler. Shout out to Lolo. Lolo is amazing. Lolo is the scheduler who got me set up with all my appointments. Originally, when we started to do my appointments, they were trying to give her dates for me for March. Yeah, this was in November. They were talking about March. Like, we got to figure this out. That's not gonna work. I need to go faster than this. So Lolo's like, let's call every office and let's just try to get in each one as fast as we can. And it worked out great. We were able to get the first date was for the 6th of December. That would be the day that I would come in and do my stress test. And that was over at East, St. Louis East, which is actually closer to me than the Plaza location. Got that in. Went to the next office. Got me in for some of my other testing, chest X-ray, and some other related testing to that. We were able to get basically every test I needed done that the officers were able to answer directly. That in that hour-long conversation with Lolo, in basically 2 Wednesdays and Friday, basically worth of time. So I was able to meet with the dietitian and pharmacist. I was able to meet with the social worker, able to get my things done as far as X-rays and ultrasounds and CTs and lab work. All of that stuff was getting handled, except for one thing. We knew at the time that I was going to need one other meeting, and that meeting would be with the pulmonary team, and that would be to just see the effects on me coming out of having had congestive heart failure and some of the other things. So she was actually able to get that done for the following Monday. So from the Wednesday after Thanksgiving until not this week's Monday, but last week Monday, I've been at the hospital basically every other day getting stuff done or meeting with somebody. That process went really well. Meaning the dietitian is now coordinating, the transplant dietitian is now coordinating with the bariatric dietitian and my dialysis dietitian. So they all three talk to each other, and we will make sure that nothing goes wrong as far as things are concerned there. Just briefly, you might notice that I'm starting to look even more different than I did before the surgery. Yeah, my shoulders are a lot smaller these days. My frame is a lot different now than it used to be. There's a lot less padding on this body now. The fluid that used to be really on my chest, which affected a lot of my breathing, is the main thing that has gone, and so there's a vastly different look to my torso than before. We can talk about it kind of openly now. When I started in May, when I ended up getting hospitalized, and they put the first chest catheter in, I was 520 pounds. By November of last year, from May to November, I had started regularly being in the 390 to 380 weight range. That plateauing continued on into February. That's when we went ahead and made the call to Dr. Tan's office. They got me in for March, and we set up to do this bariatric surgery. I was still hovering at that 380, 390 time when it was time for the bariatric surgery, which really told me, yes, I need to be doing this now because it's going to take another year plus to get down any further. I have to say thank you constantly to the team at Dr. Tan's office and Dr. Tan himself because from June 5th of this year, so just over a year from when I weighed 520 pounds, I was the last number was 390 literally because I had dialysis on Saturday and the surgery was on a Monday. From June 5th until now, I've gone from 390 to 286. I'll let that hang for a minute. I've gone from 390 pounds to regularly starting my week at dialysis at 286. And the year's just now ending. Needless to say, my weight loss is one of the major factors in why we were even able to submit me for this transplant. But even bigger than that, it's one of the main reasons why they went from the evaluation right into letting me get the tests I need done for selection consideration. And now it's just to keep losing weight thing and carefully. Um, Dr. Tan, as well as Dr. Forster and some of the other members of the transplant team at St. Luke's have said and cautioned me that the weight loss that I'm experiencing now, I may want to slow down on because there will be a major weight loss from this transplant process. Now, that's twofold. One, it is the fact that, yes, I'm going to not have, um, not going to have a lot of ability to eat a lot of real food right after this is over. Like, it's not going to be all right, steak and potatoes, right? Right, I get this kidney. There will be some recovery diet for at least those first couple of weeks, as well as after out of the hospital, as well as the kind of week or so I'll be in the hospital from the transplant. But in addition, having working kidneys that can automatically get that fluid out of my system the way it needs to be, lowering my creatinine level so my body isn't trying to retain it as well, will also cause a lot of weight loss for me as well. So we're looking at another possible big weight loss, and we don't want that to start causing major muscle loss as well and deterioration. So instead of trying to get to 200 pounds by the time they transplant me, we're kind of trying to hover around here to down around 260, 250. I really don't want to get too much lower than that unless, of course, we have to delay out for a really long time. So the evaluations were done, and the lab work was done, and the other testing was done, so they could submit me for the selection committee. That did come with news that would not necessarily be good. We found out my blood type finally, which is something that has been rather contested. My mother did not believe my blood type was type O. She wasn't sure though. We could not find the version of my birth certificate that had my blood type on it, or any, of course, finding all the other things like that. Being adopted has its own weird things. We'll talk about that in a second as well. I am O positive. That comes with a lot of complications. O group is the hardest to get transplants for because you have to have an O group match. Really, for O positive, you kind of have to have an O positive match. But regardless, it's made this more complex. Or so we thought. I constantly thank God for the small blessings, but this was a big one. I want to give a shout out to these two women who had already talked to me before about transplanting and if I needed help and things of that nature, because um, they're really about that. They're really here with me to get things done. First, I want to talk about a wonderful couple that I have known since the days of our forum RPing together, Nicole and Jeff. Um, they have known me for over a decade now. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Um, and when I first announced I was going to need a kidney, they both messaged me and said, "Hey, we talked, and if we're a match, like we will definitely give you a kidney, either one of us." And my heart was like thumping hard in my chest when I said it. And so when I got the news that I was so positive, and was honestly in a very sad state, because if I don't have a living donor, um, I will be waiting another 2+ years before I'm competitive for non-living donors. It is extremely difficult to get a transplant for anything when you are in O group. Um, but Nicole's O positive. Second woman I want to thank, who has been here very much by my side when I need it. Um, really anything, even when she has been in a position where she couldn't, provide things in a physical fashion. She's always been happy to share stuff and help get things rounded up and all kinds of organization and hearing my inane rambling about things that I was very upset about. And that has made a huge difference in my mental state through this process. So I want to thank Devin. Debbie, you you are a rock star for everything you've done. And just like Nicole, as it turns out, Devin is O group as well. So I now have two people who are potentially going to work out as donors. But here's the thing about that. It doesn't matter if they are actually a match for me. Now, obviously, they got to do all the genetic markers and all the other workups and see if they are direct matches. If they are not, I have been calling this the kidney train. It is a shared process, basically, the daisy chain of kidneys, basically. Um, there is a kidney program for living donors where basically somebody that is available to give a kidney gives that kidney, and somebody who you don't know is able to then, because of that donation, give to you. So O group, of course, can give to everyone. Only O group can give to O group, but that could also, if they're not a direct match they can use as a viability one for me, size wise, things of that nature. There's all kinds of considerations. It does allow for the possibility that someone else will be able to donate to me instead because of their donation. Um, you might be noticing that I said give to someone else and share to me. That's because of this, you don't actually have to be an O blood group to help this process. So, I did my kind of donor education thing where I watched a bunch of the videos they wanted me to watch, kind of explaining the whole living donor process and how it works, and of course, talking to people about possibly donating. So, I want to put this information in and the video right now. For anyone who's interested in doing a living donation, and this can help me directly if you are matching both blood type as well as other factors, but it can also mean that it's possible to get a donation otherwise. But let's say I find a match either out of the two of them or someone else quickly, and you just want to make it possible to help someone out while you are alive with your kidney. For those who's interested in living donation, The first person you're going to want to call is Tracy Dickey. They are the independent living donor advocate. And that phone number, as you can see there, in the Casey area. So please remember, if you press 1 or anything like that before you dial, it's 816-932-2214. The second call is going to be to Julia Batista, and that number is 816-932-2010. Those 2 phone calls will both get in touch with the advocate as well as with the living donor coordinator on the St. Luke side. That will allow you to kind of get into the process to see about matching. That's going to start the process for you. They're going to tell you, where you need to go. If you're not in the KC area, still not a big deal. It's going to be getting you set up with, schedules to get, lab work, so that lab information local to you can be done here. But that's also to make sure that you're getting your workup done to the specs necessary for my insurances, so that they will cover the part of the process that they are supposed to cover. If you are interested in doing so and you're not sure if you're a match, or you know that you are not O group, it again does not mean that you cannot help the process. Feel free to share, of course, this video, but I'll be sharing more information in a quicker to share format as well. So do those things, and it'll make things possible. Let's get to the next part. But for now, remember, living donor, Tracy Dickey, and Julia Baptista. And they will get the process started. So, where does that leave us? Well, it left us until about a week and a half ago at the response to my selection consideration. So the Wednesday of the week, I was waiting for word, because I knew by doing my stuff on Monday, I'd be done in time to make it to Logan's presentation by Wednesday, and he'd present, and I would find out in the next couple of days. We did find out, and it was not the best news. There is a weight being put in. The thing that the doctors are concerned with is my platelet count, and they're concerned that there may be some issue related to that from my liver, or possibly some other blood-related issue. Now, it is not uncommon to have a low platelet count because of dialysis and some of the other ailments that I've had previously. So they want to make sure that that is the case. To do so, we are going to have a liver biopsy done on me next week. That biopsy will give them an understanding of my liver and what's going on, but it will also make it clear whether or not the appointment I need to have with hematology about my blood in general needs to happen as part of the selection process, or if it is simply another one of those, hey, let's get this evaluated and get you in the right circles to make sure everything goes well. So right now, that is where we are. A week out from the end of the year, I'm waiting to see what that's going to be. There is a chest CT that's going to be done as well next week. That was asked for by the pulmonologist to get ready for a sleep study that they want me to do possibly in February. So right now, that's where things are hanging. That's all the medical stuff, and it is a very great place to be. Having these workups allowed to be being done by the team means that they are obviously concerned. They want to know what the source of my blood platelet issues is and what the real state of my liver is. But unless there is something truly at the level of needing like a liver transplant, and that there's something else going on with my blood that isn't really just dialysis and my previous ailments, we're ready. We're ready to have evaluations, and once the evaluations are done, we find a match, we're in there. So, again, that living donation information is up there because it is vastly important that I get to a living donation. If I do not have a living donation, it will be quite a long time before I am viable to do so. And in the Midwest, I'm actually very lucky to be here. I'm very blessed to be here because if I were on either coast, West or East Coast, and absolutely further south towards the Florida area, I would have a vastly longer wait. I was told numbers as high as 10 years to be competitive for non-living donation kidneys as O group. Here in the Midwest, it's a lot lower, but it's still a very long time. So that leads us to kind of where we are. I want to thank everybody who these last few weeks and months have kind of helped keep me afloat with things. We are in the unfortunate situation of needing to still get me out of the house. I've been told I have some help coming from my uncle, which will really kind of help, basically helping get me out of here to someplace, fronting the money against the sale of the house. Unfortunately, I still have not gotten final word on my vehicle, and it does mean I am going to have to file with the state to get a declaratory judgment and get the title put into my name there so it can be gone. Neither vehicle is one that I can reliably pay to get fixed to the point where they are usable. So just trying to sell the Continental as is and the Range Rover, once it has a declaratory judgment and I can get a title for it, then the goal is to sell it as well. I would hope that they will be enough to help mitigate some of my expenses, but the reality is I'm going to need to buy a car. Along with those needs, I have a very strange one. Of course, that is clothing. This shirt I actually bought when I was still 500 plus pounds, and it is way too big. You might notice how loosely it's fitting right now. I assure you, if I stood up, it's even looser. Most of my shirts are in that condition, even ones that are from before everything kind of went bad. I now weigh around the same I did as I was graduating from high school, technically slightly lower. By the time I have this transplant, if things continue as they've been going the last few weeks, I'm probably going to weigh like as much as I did in middle school, like less than I weighed when I played football my freshman year of high school. That means stuff doesn't fit. I have a pair of pants on right now. They're jeans, and they are a 46. And I could not viably wear them out often because I needed a belt, and I didn't have a belt that fit because they were all too big versions of me. I may even do a photo of how much weight I've lost by doing those big pants photos, you know, where you get in the old pants and you hold it up and all that kind of stuff. I might do one of those for y'all too. But that is where we are. So I need to get measured so that I can actually wear suits again. Figure out like coat sizes and pants. I was able to kind of eyeball it with a pair of pants that I received here recently. I've finally gotten a belt that does work, and some suspenders as well. A lot of things have changed. The other thing, you know, I would like to get things into a viable position to be able to do work from home stuff as we get closer to transplant. That has been rather difficult to get done. A lot of places will not hire me because of my dialysis needs. But as I have gotten to the point of being able to hold it together and really be awake and after dialysis now that I've kind of adjusted to more, it does look like I will be able to work on those days that I have dialysis. Um, there's just always stuff. Uh, I would have loved to have gotten folks Christmas gifts this year, and it was very difficult to again not be able to even get things from people I wanted to. Um, it has its moments, um, but this is an overall positive time. We're near the end. We are marching towards it. The big thing is really just going to be making sure that the the kind of the need stuff are taken care of. I was looking the other day about what could I buy if I sold my cars to replace them with, because that's the big thing. I really do need to uh, once moved somewhere. I need to get another vehicle so that I can stop having to use the medical transportation. There are a lot of issues with that. One, they give you mileage reimbursement, so it wouldn't be like I wouldn't still be mostly taken care of with my trips. But the pickup times, the drop off times, the needing to wait for them and concentrate on being available when they want me to be available can be very difficult. Mostly because um, unless you have a really good transportation company, they they might leave you hanging for an hour plus. And after dialysis, if I don't really get home, even though my blood pressure has recovered enough that I can, leave the facility, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be, viable to make it up my stairs and be okay. A lot of times that I've had to take, major long naps after dialysis because they kind of drive me out a bit, and having to wait that hour for them to show up has made it very difficult at times to get anything else done during the rest of the day. Uh, Honestly, the big thing is just being able to get to things at the last minute. This phone call for the transplant is going to come randomly. It could come in the middle of the night. It could come in the middle of me at dialysis. That's going to just happen. And having the ability to drive myself to places makes it easier for that to get done if it happens without a living donor. Of course, with a living donor, they can just schedule it for. So it's going to be a big thing. I would really love to, like I said, get some suits. I would love to get some more pants. My legs are in a better state. I'd love to get some shorts finally, a robe. Like there's a lot of just like random small stuff that you just don't think about, and um, yeah, that's where we're at. Yeah. Shoes is actually a really big thing as well. So I want to thank you all. I'm going to wrap this up. We're almost at 40 minutes now, but that is the update so far. Um, Things are going good. We have two potential direct matches, which of course also helps us with, sort of, like I said, the kidney train of matches. We have just a couple more tests to get done to make sure that everything is actually okay and they can actually go forward with this. Got a couple of vaccines to get, and once that's over, it's time. So thank you all for having stood by me and helping out in all the ways you have. Um, a lot of folks, know how difficult this has been, both financially, but also mentally and physically. Um, and everything that you all have done has helped out a ton. So, uh, no real outside updates. There is a poetry collection coming that I had promised last year, and of course, the flooding had stopped that from coming out. That was recovered. It is coming out now. And I'll be talking about that more in the future. But everything else, folks, we're at the part the the part that we've been hoping for. We're hopefully one of the two of them, Nicole or Devin, is a match directly. But if not, we are there. We are at the point where things could actually finally end and life get to a little bit more normative state. at least my version of normative, if you will. So thank you again and have a wonderful time. See you next time. Happy holidays for all the holidays you all celebrate, and see you next year.